The words echoed through the mahogany-paneled study like a death sentence. "We've decided to give Victoria the entire inheritance," my father said, not even bothering to look up from his brandy. "All 13 million. You understand, Marcus? She's always been the smart one." I stood there, 28 years old, feeling like I was 10 again, and watching my sister accept another academic award while my parents beamed with pride. My mother finally glanced at me, her expression a mixture of pity and disdain that I'd seen countless times throughout my childhood. "You've always struggled, sweetheart," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Victoria has her doctorate, her research position at Columbia. She knows how to manage money. You barely finished your bachelor's degree, and that community college certificate in accounting. She waved her hand dismissively. "Well, we just think it's better this way." Victoria sat in the leather chair by the fireplace, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her wine glass. She didn't even have the decency to look uncomfortable. Instead, she smiled at me, that same superior smile she'd worn since we were children. "Don't worry, little brother," she said. "I'm sure you'll figure something out. You always do muddle through somehow." The meeting had been called to discuss our grandfather's estate. He'd passed 6 months ago, leaving everything to my father with the understanding it would be divided between Victoria and me. $13 million split 2 ways. Enough to change lives, to build futures, to finally prove that I was more than the family disappointment. But my parents had other plans. "We're just being realistic," my father continued, finally meeting my eyes. "Your sister will invest it wisely, grow it. You'd probably waste it on some failed business venture, like that ridiculous coffee shop idea you had." That coffee shop idea had been my dream at 22. I'd presented a full business plan, market research, location analysis. My parents had laughed it off, refused to co-sign a small business loan, and spent the next 6 years reminding me how impractical I was. "I see," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. "Is there anything else?" My mother frowned. "You're not going to argue? Beg? Would it matter?" "No," Victoria said, answering for them. "It wouldn't." I left that house for the last time that night, driving my 10-year-old Honda through the rain while my sister's Tesla sat pristine in their circular driveway. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just drove to my modest apartment in Queens and sat in the darkness, letting the truth wash over me. They had never believed in me, not once. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't been muddling through these past 6 years. I'd been planning, learning, and building something they were too blind to see. The revelation came 3 weeks later, during one of my routine visits to my grandfather's lawyer, Howard Chen. I'd stayed close to Howard after the funeral because, unlike my family, he'd always treated me with respect. He'd known my grandfather well and seemed genuinely interested in my life. "Marcus," he said during our lunch meeting, his expression unusually serious. "There's something I need to tell you, something I couldn't mention while your father was alive." "My father's not dead, Howard." "No, I meant while your grandfather was alive." He pulled out a manila envelope, worn at the edges. "Your grandfather gave me specific instructions. I was to give this to you, and only you, 6 months after his death. He wanted you to have time to see how your family would handle his estate." My hands trembled as I took the envelope. Inside was a letter in my grandfather's distinctive handwriting, dated 2 years before his death. "My dear Marcus, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and I suspect your father has done exactly what I feared he would. He always favored Victoria, just as his father favored him. It's a sickness in our family, this need to elevate one child while crushing the other. But I saw you, my boy. I saw how hard you worked, how you taught yourself accounting because your parents wouldn't pay for a better school. I saw the business plans you wrote, the way you studied market trends, the quiet competence you developed while everyone mocked you. I'm sorry I couldn't be more open in my support. Your father controlled access to me in my final years, and I was too weak to fight him. But I made arrangements. The $13 million your father inherited? That was the small estate, the properties and investments everyone knew about. The real fortune, the one I built over 40 years of careful investment, amounts to approximately $47 million. And it's yours, Marcus, all of it. I set up a trust 20 years ago, completely separate from my public estate. Your father never knew it existed. Only Howard Chen knows the truth. The trust was designed to release to you on your 30th birthday or 6 months after my death, whichever came first. But here's the catch, and I hope you'll forgive an old man's sense of drama. I've also given you complete control over your father's inheritance. The $13 million. Technically, I left everything to a trust with you as the sole trustee. Your father has power of attorney over the assets, but you have the power to revoke that authority at any time. What you do with this information is entirely up to you. You can let Victoria keep the money, walk away, and live your life in peace with your $47 million. Or you can show them exactly how smart you really are. I hope you'll forgive me for not being the grandfather you deserved, but I'm trying to make it right. All my love, Grandpa Thomas. I read the letter 3 times, my heart pounding harder with each pass. Howard sat quietly, watching me process the information. Is this real? I finally asked. Every word, Howard said. I have all the documentation. The trust is ironclad. I made sure of it. Your grandfather was very specific about the structure, and he was right about the $13 million. Technically, your father never inherited it directly. The trust did, with him as the designated manager. But you're the trustee. So I can take it back? You can dissolve the entire arrangement. Your father and Victoria would get nothing. I stared at the letter, my grandfather's words swimming before my eyes. $47 million. Mine, hidden from my family for 20 years, protected from their greed and their cruelty. What do I need to do? I asked. Howard smiled. Well, that depends on what kind of man you want to be. I spent the next 2 months planning, not revenge exactly. Or at least, that's what I told myself. I was simply correcting an injustice, exposing the truth, and showing my family exactly what their disdain had cost them. I started by securing my own finances. Howard helped me establish new accounts, set up investment portfolios, and create a comprehensive financial plan. The $47 million was already generating substantial returns, managed by trustees my grandfather had selected decades ago. They were brilliant, careful, and had turned his initial investment into a fortune. I also started my business, the one I'd dreamed about for years. Not a coffee shop anymore, but something bigger. A venture capital firm focused on supporting entrepreneurs from non-traditional backgrounds. People like me who'd been overlooked, underestimated, dismissed by families who couldn't see past their own prejudices. I called it Second Chance Capital, but I didn't tell anyone about it, not yet. Meanwhile, Victoria was making plans of her own. With $13 million secured, she'd left her research position at Columbia to start a private consulting firm. My parents were ecstatic, already bragging to their country club friends about their daughter's new venture. I attended family dinners, smiled politely, and listened to them talk about Victoria's brilliance. They never asked about my life, not once. Marcus, my mother said one evening over pot roast, you really should think about going back to school. Maybe Victoria could help you get into a decent program. Victoria laughed. I don't think Marcus is the graduate school type, Mom. But hey, I'm sure there are some good trade schools around. Nothing wrong with being a plumber. My father chuckled. That's not a bad idea, actually. At least he'd have steady work. I smiled and took another bite of roast. You're probably right, I said. They had no idea. The moment came on a Tuesday evening in November, exactly 6 months after that devastating meeting in my father's study. I'd invited the family to dinner at an upscale restaurant in Manhattan. My treat, I'd insisted. They'd been surprised but accepted, probably thinking I wanted to congratulate Victoria on some new achievement. Howard Chen was waiting at the table when they arrived, his presence immediately setting off alarm bells. What's this about? My father demanded, his face already reddening. Please sit, I said calmly. We have a lot to discuss. They sat, exchanging worried glances. Victoria's earlier confidence had evaporated, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. Howard, I said, would you like to explain? Howard opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. Certainly. First, I need to clarify something about Thomas Bradford's estate. The $13 million that you believed was inherited by you, Robert, was actually placed in a trust. You were given management authority, but not ownership. The ownership belongs to Marcus, as trustee. My father's face went from red to purple. That's impossible. Dad left everything to me. He left the public estate to a trust for his grandchildren, Howard corrected, with very specific terms. Terms that you violated when you decided to give the entire amount to Victoria. We had the right to make that decision, my mother said, her voice shrill. Actually, you didn't, I said quietly. You had temporary management authority, contingent on fair distribution between both grandchildren. You violated the terms of the trust, which means I can revoke your authority and reclaim the assets. Victoria had gone pale. You can't do that. I've already invested that money. My business. Your business that you started with money that was partially mine? I leaned forward. Tell me, Victoria, how does it feel to build something on a foundation that was never yours? This is ridiculous, my father sputtered. You're being petty, Marcus. Ungrateful. Ungrateful? The word came out harder than I intended. For what? For a lifetime of being told I'm stupid? For watching you pour resources into Victoria's education while I worked 3 jobs to pay for community college? For being mocked at every family gathering? We were trying to help you be realistic, my mother said. You were never as bright as your sister. I pulled out my own envelope, the one from my grandfather. Do you know what this is? They stared at it, confused. This is a letter from Grandpa Thomas. He gave it to Howard to give to me after he died. In it, he tells me about another trust, one you didn't know about, one that contained his real fortune. The silence at the table was absolute. $47 million, I said softly. That's what Grandpa left me. Direct inheritance, completely separate from the $13 million. He set it up 20 years ago because he knew exactly what you'd do. He knew you'd choose Victoria over me, just like you always have. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father looked like he'd been struck. Victoria just stared, her perfect composure crumbling. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. The $13 million in the trust? I'm revoking your management authority and reclaiming it. All of it. Victoria will need to return what she's spent. I can't do that, Victoria whispered. I've invested it in the business. I've signed contracts, hired people. Then you'll need to find other investors, or liquidate, That's not my problem. Marcus, my father said, and for the first time in my life, I heard him use my name without disdain. Son, please, we can work this out. We made a mistake. A mistake? You systematically destroyed my self-confidence for 28 years. You made me believe I was worthless, stupid, incapable. And when you had the chance to finally treat me fairly, you chose to give everything to Victoria instead. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. What do you want? My mother asked, tears streaming down her face. Money? We'll pay you back. I don't want your money. I have plenty of my own. I stood up, buttoning my jacket. I want you to understand what you lost. I've spent the last 6 months building second chance capital. We're already managing over $60 million in assets. We've funded 12 startups, all of them run by people who were told they weren't good enough. People like me. I pulled out my phone and showed them an article from TechCrunch, published that morning. Second Chance Capital, the VC firm disrupting traditional funding models. That's me, I said. The dumb one, the failure, the disappointment. Victoria was crying now, her mascara running. My parents sat in shocked silence. The trust funds will be transferred back to my control by the end of the week, I said. Howard has all the paperwork ready. Victoria, you have 6 months to return the money you've spent, or I'll pursue legal action. Marcus, my father started, but I held up my hand. I'm not done. I'm also cutting all contact. No more family dinners, no more holidays, no more pretending we're a family. You made your choice 28 years ago, and you confirmed it 6 months ago. Now I'm making mine. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. Grandpa Thomas, he saw me. He believed in me. He knew exactly what I was capable of. That's the only validation I ever needed. I just wish he'd told me sooner. The aftermath was messy. Victoria tried to fight the trust dissolution, but the legal language was airtight. She ended up liquidating her consulting firm at a loss, returning approximately $9 million. The remaining $4 million had been spent on office space, equipment, and hiring. All gone. My parents tried to reach out repeatedly, sending letters, showing up at my office, even attempting to go through mutual friends. I ignored them all. The gossip in their social circles was apparently brutal. The story of how they disinherited their son only to discover he was already a multimillionaire spread quickly. Several of their country club friends reached out to me, apologizing for enabling my parents' behavior over the years and asking for investment meetings. I took a few of those meetings. The people who'd been genuinely kind to me, I helped. The ones who'd ignored me or participated in the mockery, I politely declined. Second Chance Capital thrived. Within a year, we'd grown to managing over $200 million in assets. I hired exceptional people, many of them individuals who'd faced similar struggles, who'd been underestimated and overlooked. We built a culture of respect, of seeing potential where others saw failure. I won't lie and say I didn't struggle with anger, with the desire for more revenge. There were nights when I wanted to do more, to hurt them the way they'd hurt me. But I realized that would make me like them, and I'd worked too hard to become something better. 2 years after that dinner in Manhattan, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Victoria. Marcus, I don't expect you to read this, and I certainly don't expect forgiveness. But I needed to write it anyway. I've spent the last 2 years in therapy, trying to understand why I treated you the way I did, why I participated in Mom and Dad's cruelty, why I felt superior to you, why I thought I deserved everything while you deserved nothing. The truth is painful. I was taught to see you as less than me from the moment we could understand language. Mom and Dad's favoritism warped me, made me believe I was better simply because I was praised more. I never questioned it. I never stood up for you. I never even tried to see things from your perspective. Losing the business was devastating, but losing you was worse. You were my brother, and I treated you like you were disposable, like you didn't matter. I can't change that now, but I want you to know I see it, I understand it, and I'm sorry. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that you were right about everything. About Grandpa seeing you, about us failing you, about me being complicit in your pain. I hope Second Chance Capital continues to thrive. I hope you find happiness and peace. You deserve both. Victoria. I kept the letter. I didn't respond, but I kept it. 6 months later, I received another letter. This one was from my mother. Dear Marcus, your father had a heart attack 3 weeks ago. He survived, but it was serious. The doctors say the stress contributed, the stress of losing you. I'm not writing to make you feel guilty. You have every right to your anger. But I'm writing because facing the possibility of losing him made me realize something. We failed you completely as parents. I keep thinking about all the times we dismissed you, belittled you, made you feel small. I think about the coffee shop business plan you showed us, the one we laughed at. I found it last month while cleaning out the attic. It was brilliant, Marcus. Truly brilliant. And we were too blind and too cruel to see it. We told ourselves we were being realistic, that we were protecting you from failure. But we were really protecting ourselves from having to admit that we'd invested everything in Victoria and had nothing left for you. We made you the scapegoat for our own inadequacies as parents. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that we see it now, all of it, and we're sorry. Your father asks about you every day. He reads every article about Second Chance Capital. He's proud of you, even if he has no right to be. Love, Mom. I read that letter multiple times, feeling emotions I'd worked hard to bury. Anger, sadness. A small, traitorous part of me that still wanted their approval, even after everything. But I didn't respond to that letter either. 3 years after the dinner, I attended a charity gala for educational access. Second Chance Capital was a major sponsor, and I was giving a speech about identifying potential in unconventional places. Halfway through my speech, I saw them. My parents sitting in the back of the ballroom. They'd aged dramatically in 3 years. My father looking frail, and my mother's face lined with grief. They weren't supposed to be there. This wasn't their usual social circle anymore. They'd had to purchase tickets like everyone else. I finished my speech, but I was rattled. Afterward, as I mingled with donors and entrepreneurs, I kept catching glimpses of them. They didn't approach me. They just watched, standing together in their formal wear, looking like ghosts of themselves. As I was leaving, my mother stepped into my path. "Please," she said quietly. "Just 5 minutes." Every instinct screamed at me to walk away, to maintain the boundaries I'd set, to protect myself from more pain. But something in her face stopped me. She looked broken in a way that went beyond age or sadness. She looked like someone who'd finally understood the magnitude of what they'd lost. 5 minutes, I said. We sat in a quiet corner of the lobby. My father joined us, moving slowly, his hand pressed to his chest, as if the heart attack had left permanent damage. "We don't want anything," my mother began. "We're not here to ask for forgiveness or to be part of your life again. We just wanted to tell you something." "What?" I asked, my voice harder than I intended. "That you were right," my father said. His voice cracked. "About everything. We failed you. We damaged you. We were so focused on Victoria's achievements that we couldn't see yours. And when Grandpa Thomas left you that money, left you his belief, we realized we'd wasted our chance to have a son. We're not good people, Marcus," my mother continued. We thought we were doing the right thing, but we were really just perpetuating the same toxic patterns we learned from our own parents. We made you suffer for our inadequacies, and we can never take that back." They sat there, two broken people who'd finally been forced to confront their own cruelty. And I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, not even pity, just emptiness. "Thank you for telling me," I said finally, "but I meant what I said 3 years ago. We're not a family anymore." "We know," my father said. "We just needed you to know that we finally see it. We see you." "That would have mattered 10 years ago," I said quietly. "It would have changed everything. But now, it's too late." I stood to leave, and my mother grabbed my hand. "Will you ever forgive us?" she whispered. I looked down at her, this woman who'd given birth to me but had never really seen me as her child. "Honestly, I don't know. Maybe someday. But right now, I need to focus on building something better. Something that doesn't carry the weight of your expectations or your disappointment." "You've built something amazing," my father said. "We've been following Second Chance Capital. Every success story, every entrepreneur you've helped. You're doing what we should have done, seeing potential instead of limitations." "Yes," I said simply. "I am." I walked away from them that night, leaving them in the lobby of a hotel where they no longer belonged. And as I drove home through the city lights, I realized something had shifted inside me. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their apology. I didn't even need revenge. I had something better. I had proof that I was never the dumb one, the failure, the disappointment. I had a life built on my own terms, surrounded by people who saw me clearly and valued me honestly. 5 years after my grandfather's death, Second Chance Capital managed over $1 billion in assets. We'd helped launch over 200 companies, created thousands of jobs, and fundamentally changed how venture capital approached unconventional founders. I was 33 years old, successful beyond anything my parents had imagined for Victoria, let alone for me. I'd been featured in Forbes, given TED Talks, and advised congressional committees on economic opportunity. But the real success wasn't the money or the recognition. It was the young woman who came to my office one Tuesday afternoon, nervous and clutching a business plan. "Mr. Bradford," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "I'm Sarah Chen. My family says my idea is stupid, that I should just get a normal job. But I think it could work. I think I could build something real." I looked at her. 24 years old, smart eyes, hands trembling as she held her dreams in a manila folder. And I saw myself at that age, full of potential that no one could see, desperate for someone to believe in me. "Tell me about it," I said, smiling. "And please, call me Marcus." As she launched into her pitch, I thought about my grandfather's letter, about his final gift to me. He'd given me money, yes. But more importantly, he'd given me validation. He'd seen me when no one else would. Now I could do the same for others. My parents had meant to destroy me with their favoritism, their mockery, their betrayal. They'd meant to prove I was less than Victoria, less than worthy, less than enough. Instead, they'd given me the greatest gift imaginable. They'd shown me exactly the kind of person I didn't want to be. And in that, they'd freed me to become exactly who I was meant to be all along. The envelope my grandfather left me changed everything. But not because of the money inside, because of the words, the belief, the recognition that I mattered. I carried that lesson with me every day, into every meeting, into every decision about who to fund and who to support. I had become what my parents could never be, someone who saw potential instead of limitations, who offered belief instead of mockery, who built up instead of tearing down. And that, more than any amount of money, was the sweetest revenge of all.